Hello, good afternoon.
I can see people joining, so I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the workshop today on building connectedness in communities through sport. On behalf of GFP, we would like to welcome you all. It's a pleasure that GFP is presenting today in the Generation Amazing Festival 2020, and we're very happy that we're connecting with you all. So I would like to introduce myself. My name is Farah Al-Badarne, and I have my colleague Jadranka Stegovac-Clark. She's the Senior Advisor and GFP Institute Director. And there's also with us our colleague Aisha bint Faisal. She is the Research, Education and Outreach Coordinator. She will be the producer for this session and supporting us in the background. All right, so I think we're gonna share with you a presentation. So we're just currently starting our presentation on building connectedness in communities through sport. And I would like to start introducing myself. My name is Farah Al-Badarne again, and I am Jordan Programs Manager at Generations for Peace. I'm also a former player on the Jordan Women's National Team. I played from 2005 till 2013. And then I moved to the other side of the fence, and I worked for the local organizing committee of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. I was heading the competitions department, and then Jordan has also hosted the AFC Women's Asian Cup in 2018, and I was the competition director. And driven by my passion in football and believing that football is more than just a game, and it has a lot of values. It has the unique power for positive social change. I joined GFP 2 years ago for an organization that focuses on sport and that sees the role of sport in sustained social change. That's a bit of my background. My colleague Jadranka is also with us. Jadranka, again, is the Senior Advisor and GFP Institute Director. Prior to her joining Generations for Peace in 2008, she worked for the International Olympic Committee for 10 years. And she contributed to the development of Generations for Peace through sport curriculum. And she has worked on sharpening the organization focus on programmatic research mission, and has also led GFP's research and curriculum development since 2008. All right, so we'll start first of all a few minutes to get to know you more, and we're having polls with some questions on the right of the screen. So if you just click on polls, we would like you to answer a few questions to get to know you. We have the first question is, which continent are you from? Which best describes your age? And the third question is, which best describes your sport for development experience? So we'll have just a few minutes to give you the chance to answer these three questions, and we'll reveal the results before we start the presentation.
And how is it going with the polls?
So from which continent? We have all of our participants today are from Asia so far, the age 25 plus. And most of our participants have been involved in leading organizations and sport for development activities. A few have been involved as a participant in some sport for development activities before, but yeah, all of our participants are from Asia. And I think more people are voting as they join. So I think we can also reveal more details throughout today's presentation. Right. Good. So we'll move to who we are and give you a brief about Generations for Peace. Perhaps some of you are familiar with the name of the organization, but I'm happy to also give you a brief introduction on the root history mission. We are a unique Jordanian international nonprofit peacebuilding organization founded in 2007 by His Royal Highness Prince Faisal Al Hussein of Jordan. And we are the only peace through sport organization that is officially recognized by the International Olympic Committee. And we're a volunteer movement. We're dedicated to sustainable conflict transformation at grassroots levels in communities. And our values are youth leadership, responsible citizenship, active tolerance, and community empowerment. So in the past 13 years, we have trained and mentored more than 19,000 volunteers across 51 countries from Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, Europe, and North America. And our ongoing programs address local issues of conflict and violence. And we have engaged with more than 1,300,000 children, youth, and adults in all the areas and countries that we work in. We're currently ranked number 26 in the top 500 NGOs in the world. And this ranking is based on the assessment of innovation, impact, sustainability, and good governance that is done by NGO Advisor. We are ranked number 3 as a peacebuilding NGO and number 2 as an anti-violence NGO in the world. And we're top ranked NGO in the Arab world. Okay, so moving on details how we build peace and how we work as GFP. Our origins go back to 2007, and when we started Generations for Peace as a project of the Jordan Olympic Committee. So sport is in our DNA. And although we have developed different vehicles and tools such as arts, advocacy, dialogue, and empowerment, our volunteers still regularly develop and deliver sport-based programs in their communities. And we can say that the biggest programs that we're implementing in Jordan and outside Jordan are also, we're still using the sport as the main tool to engage with target group, with youth, with parents, with community members, to create the change in the behavior and the attitude on individual level, but also on the collective level. So for our programs in Jordan and the different countries, we work in diverse contexts. In Jordan, we work in school settings, community settings. We have a lot of Syrians also participating in a lot of programs, ensuring inclusivity and diversity. We work in host communities. We don't work inside the camps because we also believe that a lot of development programs are also needed in the host communities or in the communities that host a lot of Syrians, but also engaging with a lot of youth that are at risk, that really needed access to extracurricular activities that can foster their skills and foster and help to achieve the change in the behavior and the attitude that we focus on. Moving to the next slide, why sport for peace building? I'm going to hand over here to Yadranka to speak more about this.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you, everyone. So we are all here between us in a sport community, and most probably there's no need too much to speak of the benefits of sport for peace building, but we still want to run through some of those benefits that over the years we have been working in Jordan and 50 other countries on 3 continents. Over the years, we have seen over and over again, we have got proofs and evidence that there is a reason why sports should be used even more in programs that engage particularly children and youth for peace building. Sport, of course, has universal popularity. In any community, there will be some sort of sport activities going on. Therefore, it's very easy for organizations like ours, and for the volunteers we work with, who come from the communities in which programs are happening, who lead and design those communities together with the community members. So it's very easy to organize some basic activities, plug into what is happening in the community, and then over a longer period of time, peace building takes lots of time, over a longer period of time, engage in meaningful activities that ultimately aim at building peace. As we all know, sport has incredible ability to connect people and communities, and that's something that we are really tapping into and using in our programs. The sport situation itself, if well facilitated, is a safe space for people to meet and to interact. And here we really emphasize if well facilitated, because the activities have to be adapted to the target population, to the participants, and that safe space has to be very carefully crafted and created so that over a period of time, while children play sport and discuss the life they have, while taking time, that sport situation encourages them to open more and to tackle the issues of conflict and violence that are the subject of our programs. Sport also has the ability to teach all sorts of life skills. We normally work with 4 big clusters of skills or skill sets of life skills, and they are completely integrated into every sport activity we are delivering. And greater self-confidence, but also resilience on individual and community level. Of course, teamwork and responsibility and discipline that come with sport, time management, leadership, but also all sets of civic skills. They all come through the application of sport in our programs. Sport is a dialogue. It's a universal language, of course, and we all use very often that phrase. It's a language through which people interact and communicate their values. We are values-based organization. Sport we use is heavily grounded in the values that Farah just mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. And in all activities, we really not only encourage and demonstrate those values, but teach our children and youth and adults, in some cases, their parents, what those values mean and how they need to walk the talk. Sport is also, for us, the most important part of this is that sport is an entry point and vehicle for education and behavioral change, because ultimately our programs aim to instill the behavioral change. It is a way of engaging people, especially youth, in a community. And then sport is also a communications platform because it can attract a lot of people. And this is where, because it is a communication platform, this is where this sport situation as a safe space becomes very important to properly manage and facilitate with our participants. Extremely important benefit in a peace building work, benefit of using sport is that it provides peer groups and role models. So male and female role models within a community and peer group situation are really great opportunities for discussion about issues in a community, and our programs are really very much based on that peer group dynamic that is developing from the beginning of the programmatic intervention to the end. Sport has, of course, potential to empower, to motivate, to inspire people, and people using sport very often discover abilities that they didn't have. They gain their confidence, and it's very exciting and motivating to see them grow while playing sport and doing some other things in our programs. And finally, sport is relatively cost effective, and in our activities we have made sure that we are using what is there, what is available. We are not reinventing the wheel, and we are trying to really do a lot with imagination and improvisation. I want to move ahead with a slide that is explaining how, in fact, we in Generations for Peace understand sport for development and peace. We call it a spectrum, and we have very early, when we were starting with Generations for Peace, we looked around, we did a mapping of other sport for development and peace organizations, and we have sort of figured out that using also research and literature that existed at that time, that we can cluster all interventions, all activities that have some sport into that are part of development field into 4 categories. So of course, there are activities that are purely sport-based, and they are there for development of the sport itself. They're focusing on sport objectives, on competition, on sport skills. These are the ones that are the red level of the red side of the spectrum. They are sport activities, purely sport development activities. Then within the sport for peace and development, there are these core sport plus and plus sport definitions. So sport plus, you will see that in the activities that focus on the really inherent benefits of sport participation, but really for development objectives. So for example, if you are observing a sport peace activity, it may sometimes look really the same as a sport development activity, but the objectives would be for a different purpose, for a different aim. It is not about developing sport. It is about, for example, developing healthy lifestyles or entering into development areas, so providing other benefits to the community. Results of sport intervention are providing benefits for the broader community that are not only on the sports side. On the plus sport, on the other side, on the plus sport, closer to that part of the screen that is more blue-violet, we see the organizations that use sport just as an entry point or vehicle for development, for peace building, for different developmental objectives. And if you really observe plus sport activity, very often you would see some sort of sport activity being played, and that activity very often is adapted. So sport called like basketball by football has been heavily adapted to adjusted to suit the conditions on the ground and the specificities of the target group. And that very often that activity may look a little bit confusing as a sport activity, but that's the plus sport activity that is really aimed at very particular objectives like social change, ultimately peace building part of the social change, or education or something else. And then of course you have no sport. It's peace and development, but without sport, where other organizations, peace building organizations like Generations for Peace, do their programming, but without any use of sport. So for us, over the years, we have moved from one side of the spectrum and other, and today we can say that we are between plus sport, so still using in a large number of the programs sport-based activities, sports-based interventions, but we are also, as Farah has just explained, we developed arts, advocacy, and many other interventions that are really no sport, and both are used for the same peace building objectives. So we are, after quite a lot of talking, we are going to do another poll, and our colleague Aisha is going to help you answer. So we're going to guess, for example, if you are observing a session in which the participants are, let's say, training for the basketball championships, what that activity would be then. Aisha, poll is, I think, open. I cannot see it on the screen.
Yeah, Janka.
Thank you.
This will be your answer on the example number 1.
Okay. And then if you are observing an activity in which participants look like they're playing some games, spending a lot of time discussing, for example, how to improve their civic skills, would that be sport plus or plus sport or sport development?
So for the first question, we have 67% or now 50% that answered sport development and 50% that answered sport plus. That was for the first question. For the second question, 67% voted as a sport plus and 30% as plus sport.
All right, and here's the third poll. If you're observing an activity that, in addition, of course, to being fun, because sport always have to be fun, no matter what purpose it has, sport development plus sport, or sport plus, but activity that also, for example, raises awareness of participants about the diabetes. Would you think that this is sport development, sport plus, or plus sport activity?
All right, so for this question, we also have 67% of the answers is sport plus and 33% as plus sport. And I think we have one answer that it's no sport.
Okay, good. So from this very sort of detailed introduction of how we use sport, we will move to sport during these very difficult COVID times. So as any other organization, we have faced challenges in delivering our programs in Jordan or elsewhere around the world the moment COVID was there and many communities had to go to lockdowns. Essence of sport is contact theory. You have to be in contact with somebody in order to play sport, but in our case, exchange, share, discuss, and change your attitude and change your behavior. So we realized that in order to keep our volunteers active and in order to keep things going and until COVID is manageable and we all learned how to live with it and can go back to face-to-face interaction, hopefully similar to the ones as the ones that were there before COVID, we've decided to really convert a lot of activities we have in online activities. So you are going to see 3 segments in a video. It is not a video itself, so you're not going to see a story in a video, but we've just took segments of activities to present to you what it is that we are doing since March, basically. So you will see in the first segment, one of our colleagues delivering basic elements in a video of introduction of what is Sport for Peace, so part of our curriculum. This is one of the introductory videos that is used in our online self-paced trainings. So many of you have done instructor-led self-paced trainings online. We have now moved online, and our volunteers, instead of face-to-face, are being trained through using different online tools. And those training are either led by our facilitators, by our instructors, in groups or with participants, or the participants themselves do the training phase by phase, course by course, until they get certified and then are ready to implement activities. Then you will see the second segment, which is an activity. So it is a sport-based activity that has elements of warm-up that we would normally do at the beginning of each session we have. This is activity that is done in a COVID-safe mode, so it's a low contact, it's minimal equipment, it's really low health risk. And this is an example of how we took all our activities and check them whether they can be delivered in smaller pods of 3 to 12 people, under which conditions, and then film them so that our volunteers can watch these activities first online and then go in their community with others who are part of their program and deliver it together with our volunteer who is observing and making sure that health-wise it's all safe. And then the very third segment is of just a few seconds. You will see at the beginning of COVID, we have created GFP at home videos so that our youngest in particular, but some older as well, can be guided to do activities in their families and film themselves, send us what they have done, show us how they are progressing in that path of being part of the Generations for Peace program, and then engage in exchanges online with us. So 3 segments, after which we will touch a little bit more on COVID and then speak in the Q&A session on how activities are delivered and how generally we think sport can be used for objectives like peace building. Video, please.
Thank you, Yadranka, for presenting a lot of important matters related also to the model that we follow. And you've also touched on the COVID-19 adaptations. And in the video, we have seen some of the activities that we redesigned and filmed during or once COVID-19 started to support and ensure continuity of our programs in the different countries and communities that we work in. So for COVID-19 and the adaptations, once COVID-19 started, and in Jordan specifically, the government took decisive decision for a complete lockdown. So our programs were suspended, everything has stopped. So we immediately thought that we need to fully integrate COVID-19 measures and think of redesigning our ongoing sessions to ensure that we can still engage with our participants in the different programs. The first thing we also focused on is what is our role at Generation for Peace towards the youth. The least thing or the first thing that we thought about is the safety of all our program participants is first. So we started sending public health messages through all our GFP networks and the social media. And we've created a hashtag GFP at home. And we encouraged all our target groups and youth to start sharing some activities that they do at home and share them with their peers. So then we immediately started drafting a protocol, a safety protocol that incorporates all COVID-19 related measures, including redesigning the activities and adaptation of our ongoing activities and trainings to be delivered in a COVID-19 safe manner in the real world or at home. So depending on the situation in any country, we had the two options available to support our youth in delivering those sessions to the target group. And we have also adapted our M&E approach to integrate COVID-related restrictions and ensure we can still collect feedback. We're still listening to our volunteers and the communities that we work in through adapted online M&E processes. So as Yadranka mentioned, maybe before, all our activities for the target group are based on face-to-face, people-to-people, and contact theory. So since COVID started, our activities has been again redesigned to be physically distant, non-contact, and the need for simple and the minimum use of equipment to ensure that for those who are implementing at home, they can still implement the activities with minimum equipment that they can find at their home. And as we said, we adapted them to be available to be delivered in a blended approach, online and offline. And for this process, we have different phases to ensure that we're still achieving the objective of any session that is delivered to the target group. So the first, we start with an online engagement between the youth and the target group, in which this is initiated by the volunteer to support the development of individual, but also the group dynamics, and prepare them to conduct the modified activities, whether in their home or in the communities or in the youth centers or in any safe space that is identified. So this is the first session, online session, that happens between the youth and the target group. This is also followed by the target group engaging in the real world and experiencing the modified physically distant activities that were designed. So they implement these activities, but taking into consideration the social distancing measures that are being applied. After they finish the activity, the third phase come also again online, in which they reconvene again with the youth member. They discuss together what happened in the second phase during the implementation. They reflect, they have a full debrief, including relevance to real life situation, what kind of skills they have learned, what kind of skills they have experimented or used during the activity. And they also debrief on the linkages between the life skills and applying it in the real world. Some discussions also happens on their feeling, how they were feeling and were thinking while taking part in the activity, their own observations, the difference between implementing the activity during COVID-19 and with COVID-19 measures and before. So a lot of reflections and debrief that happens in this online session to ensure that they have benefited from this and they can utilize the skills that they have learned in their real life. So this is the blended approach of implementation. And also two more things that we also took into consideration during COVID is the trainings. So this is the first step that we usually follow when we implement any program. We believe that the local actors are the ones who understand better the community and are the ones who should engage with their community to really reach the behavioral change and the social change, because they better understand what are the needs of their communities. So the first step is always training and building the capacity of our volunteers, equipping them with the skills that they need to deliver such programs. So the trainings will also be redesigned, and we are now having self-paced trainings, instructor-led mode trainings, and we're using different online platforms to do that. The last component is the M&E processes, which I quickly touched base on. It has also been adjusted to include online qualitative and quantitative data collection. But we also took into consideration, especially that we work in communities where access to the internet sometimes is not available. They have some challenges, including the lack of devices or equipments that they need. So we also have done a quick assessment to understand what are the needs, what are the challenges of the youth and the participants that we work with, to ensure that we also provide this support during COVID-19. So I think, yeah, this
Great.
marks the end of the presentation, and I'm not sure if I asked you, encouraged you all to add your questions, your comments in the chat box, and we're happy also to answer them and answer any question that might come from the audience. So I do see a lot of comments. It's interesting to hear about Generations for Peace work. They agree with what Jadranka presented on the types of life skills and the skills, including well-being and the social skills. And it's a very interesting model when you spoke maybe about the sport plus and plus sport and the sport development part. All these comments that we've received so far from the audience.
And on the screen, in fact, we have images of our programs. So one with the girls in Nigeria, another one in Pakistan, in what used to be, before Syria refugee crisis, it used to be the biggest refugee and IDPs camp in the world. And we have been working there for a number of years, particularly engaging young girls in sport activities and using maybe approach that was a combination of that sport development plus sport, healthy lifestyles, in order to get to the girls and engage them, get approval of their parents and guardians, caretakers to play some sport. We had really to do lots of engagement in the camp with families, with tribal chiefs, with authorities, and provide activities that were really health, aiming at improvement of health situation, to get trust and confidence before we were allowed to work with the girls. So you have here a photo of activity. We in fact worked with boys and girls, and in some cases with boys and girls mixed. And we used the softball because it was an activity that was really new for everybody. So we couldn't have boys, for example, performing better than girls. And then the third photo is a photo from our programs where one of the volunteers is teaching and guiding one of another cohort of volunteers to experience wheelchair basketball and learn how to play it.
Thank you, Danka, for explaining all these programs. I would like to add what we have seen in a lot of programs, that when sport is included in the program, we see how much this attracts more participants. So we used to have some programs where some sessions focused on maybe life skills, the theoretical part, but when it comes to sport with integrated life skills, I think sport really has that power to engage more, to attract more youth. And people to engage together. So yes, and I think until we have questions, or if there are any questions, I would like to also tell everyone that the audience today, that if you'd like to know more information about Generations for Peace, please feel free to visit our website. It's www.gfp.ngo. And we would love to connect with you also over our social media platform on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. The session today was maybe a bit short, but we're happy to answer any questions that you through connecting with us on our social media platform, or if you want to know more information, it's also on our websites.
And then for the video and for the examples of the activities that have been adapted to these COVID times, a lot of it is on our YouTube and on our Facebook. This session will be recorded, so you would have access to the presentation and everything we have said, but you won't be able to see the video. So for the videos, Facebook, GFP at Home, hashtag GFP at Home, but also YouTube. And then if you are really interested in getting in touch and discussing or sharing ideas on how we can play sport in these COVID times, and how we can, in our case, use sport for peace, or sport for the peace and development, please let us know and get in touch with us, and we'll be really happy to keep the conversations at this Generation Amazing Festival ongoing, and build a network of practitioners who are sharing ideas and really putting sport, giving sport due recognition, and putting sport at the heart of our communities.
I think looking at the time, I would like to wrap up the session, and thanks everyone, all the attendants today, for the participation and the attendance and all the comments that you've shared in the chat box. We hope you enjoyed the learning of today's session, and we're glad that we have connected with you. Thank you so much for your time, and wishing you a great day ahead with more lessons and sessions at the Generations Amazing Festival 2020. Thank you so much, and regards from all GFP family.